Welcome to the Battlefield Show. I'm your host, Sage Goodwin, and I'm joined, as always, by Sammy Boy. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Pumped to jump back into some Battlefield discussion, and today we're going to be talking about cross-gen or crossplay and Battlefield, some of the news that we've gotten around the new game mode, and what we talk about in between those. So, as always, let's jump right into things. Hey, it's Sage from the future. I just want to hop in and say that this podcast was recorded before the recent news about the implementation of crossplay. It is happening. It's going to be between PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC, and then Xbox One consoles and PS4 consoles will be able to crossplay with each other as well. You can opt out to play with PC players, but doing so will actually kick you out of playing against other crossplay as well. So it's either you play with people specifically on your platform, or it's crossplay against Xbox Series X, PC, and PS5. With all that to say, there's still some really good content in this episode, so be sure to check it out, and we dive deep into some of the thoughts around crossplay. So, now back to the show. Okay. Battlefield 2042, a game surrounded by mystery and intrigue until we get more details at EA Play very soon. But one of the things that has come out pretty recently was a couple of interviews and discussions between some of the people involved with Battlefield. And one of the things was a slight mention to crossplay. Nothing really concrete there. But Daniel Berlin, the design director for Battlefield 2042, said this around crossplay. And this is the question here. We know there are a lot of tech questions that players have in mind in terms of specs, crossplay, anti-cheat, but it sounds like most of that will be revealed in the future, right? Yes, and in terms of anti-cheat, it's important for us to say that it is exceptionally important to us for our players to have play sessions that are free from harassment, free from cheating. There's an EA-wide program called Positive Play that we're also joining with 2042, but we can't go into any specific details right now, and we'll be providing more information on things like crossplay at a later date. So this both excites me and terrifies me. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. I'm really, really eager to hear how this is going to go, because I think for me, this is probably the single biggest question I have about the game. Obviously, with the shortage of consoles and stuff like that, there's a lot of people that aren't going to be able to play on next gen. So cross-gen is even a topic as well. But then also, I've got a bunch of mates that are on PlayStation, and I do have a PlayStation, so it's not the end of the world if we can't play together. But I would love to be able to play on my Xbox and play with my PlayStation friends and stuff like that. So for me, it's like, yeah, probably one of the biggest selling points, especially to them. A lot of my friends, like IRL friends, they're more like casual gamers, and if I can't play with them, they're probably not going to bother buying it because we all sort of play together. So
yeah. I mean, that's the thing right there is I have very strong thoughts around crossplay. I think if you are a game that comes out anytime and you have a multiplayer experience and you have the game releasing on multiple platforms, you should have crossplay, period. Like, it's just a thing now. It is so valuable to the consumer. Even if it takes more time to develop it and implement it into the game, it's worth it for the quality of life for that experience. Like you said, let's just say you have a bunch of buddies, and any time, like that is the number one reason why people have stayed with a set console, is all of their friends play on it. But once you open up those borders, you can start playing with more people, and you can say, hey, I really like the controller of the Xbox better, so I'm going to play it on the Xbox, or I'm going to like it this thing for the other console. Like, you get to make the decision to say, hey, I like this thing, I'm going to play on this thing, and also I can play with my friends.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think any AAA game that comes out with multiplayer, like you said, if it doesn't have crossplay from now on, it's an instant fail for me. I think it's the most, like, now that Call of Duty and stuff have done it, that is now the norm, and everyone any game who wants to compete and be, considered a AAA game, they have to have crossplay. That's just the end of the story, because forever it was like, 10 years ago we thought it wasn't possible. I thought this would never happen, and now it has. So now that it has happened, it's obviously not. I'm sure it takes a lot of work to get it done and stuff like that, but it's not impossible now. And now that it is possible, and it's obviously one of the biggest focal points for most people, I think it is a must at this point.
Mm-hmm. I mean, when Nintendo brings it before PlayStation, you know it's the future.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge part of our questions for EA and DICE and all the teams working on it with crossplay. Like, it's such a huge and valuable part to how people play games now. Like, could you imagine if, I mean, you can play Fortnite on a phone and play with PC players. Well, I'm not saying you have to consciously make that decision, but you can do so. And I think that's something that I want to see from EA. Maybe that's not the default, but I would love the choice to be saying, hey, I want to play with last gen, but again, because you can't play the larger scale modes, but you can play the smaller scale modes. Or if you play with last gen console players, you're playing on their servers and their games. So you're limited to 64 players, and you're limited to the size of those maps.
I think the main thing for me is that they need to just come out and say it either way. If it's not going to be there, it's not the end of the world for me. I'm still going to play the game a lot, but they need to let us know, because I think that is seriously from everything that I've heard from everyone in the community and my own community and stuff like that, that's the main thing that I just keep hearing about. Is it going to have crossplay? Are we all going to be able to play together? I think it's bigger than people sort of realize, because a lot of people might not be affected by it because maybe all their friends are already on Xbox, for example.
They're in the position where they could buy it on Xbox. We are in the privileged situation that we have a PlayStation, an Xbox, and a PC.
Yeah.
Not everyone is in that situation. And let's just say you, okay, we're schoolmates here. We're going to middle school, high school, whatever. And you could only get an Xbox because that's literally the only thing that they had or were able to get your hands on. I was only able to get a PlayStation because that was literally, maybe we wanted to both be on there, but because of the situation with consoles right now, you physically can't. What is that situation going to be like when you're super hyped? We wouldn't be able to play with each other.
Exactly, and that really can kill the hype for the game, because a lot of younger kids and stuff, they might be really keen for the game, and then when it gets closer to launch, they're like, "Oh, this isn't going to work. I'm not going to be able to play with you because." Yeah, I've only been able to get an Xbox because there's a shortage of PlayStations, but you were lucky to get a PlayStation, and so we just can't play together, and that is it's gonna kill a lot of hype for a lot of people, and it honestly will drop the sales. I think a lot of people won't buy the game if there's no crossplay. Like I said, I've got a bunch of mates who they're not really gamers, but they enjoy playing, and we play a lot of Warzone, and that would have never happened if it didn't have crossplay. I would never. That was the first game I'd played with those guys, because they've always had consoles, but they've never been those sort of diehard gamers or anything like that. But because it was crossplay, we thought, hey, let's just jump on and play. And now we play every single week and have done for a year. So I know when Battlefield comes out and I'm playing Battlefield and I'm going to be saying hey, you guys should get Battlefield. If I can't play with them, I'd know for a fact they're just not going to get the game, because that's the only selling point for them, is just squadding up with the boys. They don't really care what game it is, if that makes sense. So, I think it will massively affect the game if they don't have it. It's not, like I said, it's not do or die. I think the game will do well enough without it, because, all the previous games haven't had it. But like we said, it's now that it is the norm. I think everyone has to have it at this point.
And there's another point to that too, to say, hey, because of the shortage of consoles, you're going to have smaller player bases on Xbox or PS5. There are only so many people on each of those platforms, and there's only so many people that are going to play Battlefield on those platforms. Connect them. Say, hey, you guys can play with each other, because we need the amount of players. And I made a video on this, and one of the things that I pointed out was the fact that they had AI soldiers and they announced that to be in the game kind of scared me about crossplay.
Yeah.
Because you can make the argument, we don't need crossplay. You have AI soldiers to fill the spots.
Yeah, that does worry me a little bit too, because it almost seems like they're preparing for that a little bit. It could just be the fact that they're just doing it because it's a new implementation. But it could be that maybe there isn't crossplay and they're doing that as a I guess, precaution
Mm-hmm.
for, those lower. Because, like we've said, speaking about Australian servers, it's hard enough to find a game of Battlefield 5, which is only on one generation. If I've got to find, I know Battlefield 2042 will be new, but there's not going to be that many people in Australia who have a Series X compared to, how it was with the old games. So if that's the case, it might honestly be actually hard for me to find games at launch, which that would borderline kill the game for me. If I can't find games straight away at launch, that's like, okay, well, what's the point in playing this game then? Because if I've got to sit around or if I've got to change servers and go play on 200 ping just to get a game, like that'll be genuinely like game breaking. So I think they just need to. I really hope at EA Play maybe they answer some of those questions, but
I hope so.
I'm also not really expecting it just because I feel like EA Play will be more.
It's not really the place
of a showcase. Like, they're obviously going to be showing the new modes and stuff, so I don't know if it's like the place where they're going to talk about that, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've got leaked versions of the show in terms of like the run of show and how long it's going to be. They said it's going to be probably like 45 minutes. There's no way that you can really get, like, if they have 15 minutes of gameplay, boom, you only have 30 minutes to talk about Apex, all of the sports games, and Sims. So I don't know if that's the place for it.
Yeah, think of all the games. There'll be Battlefield, there'll be Apex, there'll no doubt be FIFA and a couple other games. There's rumors of like Dead Space, a new Dead Space game. So if say there's 8 games, they're saying it's 40 minutes, and let's just say there's 8 games that they cover. That's 5 minutes each. So what are they going to be able to show off in 5 minutes at the end of the day? Because that's literally the same length as the trailer, the reveal trailer, which we didn't really learn that. All we learned was the setting kind of thing. So, I don't think it will be the place. I think they will showcase, like, I'm assuming it's going to be that, like, the Battlefield hub or the love letter mode, whatever that's going to be. That seems like that's going to be the focus of it. Mm-hmm. And I just don't know if that fits into. Like, I don't know if talking about crossplay fits into that. Maybe it will, because that's if that's like a love letter mode, then maybe that does fit into it. But I am definitely a little bit worried that we won't see anything about it. Which, as long as they follow up in the next month or so, that'll be fine. But
because I
just hope they don't leave it until launch or something.
Yeah, I know people personally that are waiting to see if it's crossplay before they buy or pre-order the game.
Yeah.
We mentioned this earlier, talking about the new Redacted game mode. We got some more details on it, and one of those was it's a love letter game mode, and it's going to feature remasters of fan favorite maps. And we're going to get more details on that July 22nd.
That had me very excited. There's obviously been the rumors, and I guess if they are true, then leaks, I guess.
I like that.
Of the, like, this Battlefield hub where they're saying, and again, I don't know how true this is, so take this with a grain of salt, but they're saying that it's going to be like, remastered old maps, and you can use weapons from different games, and just like sort of almost like a cross-era little mode where you can play, use a Battlefield 3 tank on a Battlefield 4 map with the Battlefield 1 weapon and stuff like that, and just sort of like a real casual like mode, and that kind of them announcing the remastered maps really does make that seem like it is a possibility. So I'm definitely very excited to hear more about that, and I think that'll be the main focus at our EA Play, is just to let us know about that mode, because it seems like, and I don't know if you watched that the spotlight thing that EA did, but man, they hyped it up. They were like going on about how amazing it is and stuff like that. And I think they would have learned their lesson after Battlefield 5 to not do that if it's not good. So the fact that they are hyping it up has me pretty excited.
What maps would you like to see be added? Like, are there any maps that, like, just right off the bat, what would you love to see?
The first one that always comes to mind is Caspian Border. I think that's my favorite. Probably in the whole franchise. Oh man, there's so many. Battlefield 3 and 4, nearly all the maps. Like, I would be happy with any, because all of those maps were just so good. Operation Firestorm from Battlefield 3 was really good. What else? Operation Metro. I guess we have Metro or Underground, whatever, in
BF5
in Battlefield 5. But the original version of that, where you would go outside, like the I think it was in Rush, the last phase would take place like out in the city kind of thing. That was awesome. Oh, there's so many. I could sit here for like 10 minutes just naming maps, to be honest. The thing with Battlefield is, I think that's why I love the multiplayer so much, because there's very rarely bad maps. I think a lot of other games have a lot of maps that you're like, oh, I hate this map. But Battlefield, like, there's probably like 3 maps in the whole franchise that I dislike, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would love to see Zavod 311 as one that I would love to see.
Absolutely.
A Siege of Shanghai would be pretty fun, or a similar map. Like Operation Locker would be pretty cool. I was playing some of that earlier today.
That would, imagine that with 128.
Could you?
Mate.
I would love that so much. It would feel like incredible madness, and I would be so down for it.
Oh, dude, I would be like, it would borderline be unplayable, but I would be so keen for that. 128 players, just like it's almost too chaotic as is with 64. But I would love to see that. That would be even just like a limited time mode, like they bring it, one weekend every month or something, and bring that in and have 128 players. That would be mental.
Yeah. Oh man, it'd be so fun. I love playing on that map. It's just so fast paced, and it forces everyone to be everywhere. Like, it doesn't really have a whole lot of like, this side is this side and this side is the other side. It's you're everywhere, and it's like a prison break.
Yeah, exactly. And there's very few like quiet moments. A lot of the other maps, obviously, you've got to travel to from the spawn to a flag, and it takes a while. But this one, it's just like wherever you spawn, it's just like you're pretty much in a gunfight straight away.
Mm-hmm. Another pretty iconic one is Lankang Dam. That's a pretty popular one. I could see them implementing that. Be cool if like they had a little bit of evolution with it, like destroying the dam usually causes. But I think that'd be pretty fun.
There's honestly so many. Like, if you listed any from Battlefield 4, I'd be like,
yeah, you could put them like in a random generator, and I'd be happy with whatever random game or map it came. Yeah. So when that got announced, I have like PTSD from Starfighter Assault with a third-party game development company, because this is going to be this is designed by Ripple Effect Studio.
Yeah.
Previously, DICE LA. Yeah. They rebranded, and they said that they've been working on this game for quite a bit of time, and they've got content lined up for continued support. But I still always think of Starfighter Assault or Firestorm with Battlefield 5. Again, both of those are Criterion, so maybe it's a Criterion problem.
That's true.
But that is one of my concerns, is a third-party game, and they've said once they get it done and they've fulfilled their promise, they're stepping away and focusing on other things. And that doesn't mean that a dev company is going to, like a smaller section of DICE isn't going to manage it, but it is one of my concerns that they'll set up the game and then we won't see any support or anything like that.
Yeah, it's definitely a worry. DICE has obviously shown a lot of poor signs with that in the last, like in Battlefield 5 and Battlefront 2. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of like mismanagement, I guess. But from what I've heard, they've essentially got like, they're already working like pretty much a year ahead on content, apparently. So
yeah, that's what I've heard as well.
Yeah, so I think it'll launch, and then I think it's like confirmed that they will be adding more content to it. And then, like you said, I think, DICE Stockholm can probably handle, adding some stuff to that. And the other thing is, if this is going to be more of a sort of casual, more, I guess just a fun game mode rather than, there's obviously going to be the core experience, which is going, like, that'll be the focus of the game. But if this is just going to be a fun little, like, offshoot, then if we only get content for a year, then I'm kind of fine with that, as long as the main game is getting attention. So
yeah.
But it also depends on what, it might be my favorite mode. I don't really know what it's going to be yet. So
exactly. If it's only supported for a year and it's like the best mode in there, it's this would suck.
Yeah, for sure. But I think if it is just like remasters and stuff, I feel like Dice Stockholm can take over on that, because it's not. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think Ripple Effect have made it because it's something that they know how to do better or anything like that. I think it's mostly just because to sort of take the strain off Dice Stockholm for, they're obviously working on the main game. So I think so long as they're also far enough ahead on the actual content for the base game, so that they're not rushing with that, then hopefully they can manage it well enough. But
maybe the content,
it's hard to tell.
The main content for that specific thing comes from Ripple Effect Studios, and then DICE manages it. Or if they implement something from, or in the main game, they can easily bring it over to that specific game mode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's. I guess it's hard for us to tell, isn't it? Because we don't technically there's obviously the rumors, but we don't know how true. Any of them will be. We
just know from what they've said. Lars Gustafsson, aka Mr. Battlefield, this is from the Battlefield Bulletin, says, quote, was jumping around on the Zoom chair when he saw the fan favorite maps returning to Battlefield 2042.
That was the type of stuff that had me so hyped. When I feel like they have surely learned their lesson with the last few games, that you don't say stuff like that if it's just like decent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like you only say that if it's like, this is going to be mind-blowing. So
yeah, I'm
definitely very excited. I am trying to not get my hopes up too much because we've been hurt in the past with DICE, unfortunately. But
yeah,
I think all the previous stuff, like Battlefield in the past until really Battlefield 5, they've done it all like really, really well. So I'm willing to give them one sort of blunder, and hopefully they can turn that around. And I'm definitely willing to trust them. But I won't get my hopes up until we see it.
Ultimately, this is the game that will decide the future of DICE and what you can really trust them on from like what they say and what they deliver perspective. And one of the things too about the situations with Battlefront and Battlefield 5 is they were working on them simultaneously, and they had a lot of split development teams. They would organize the teams would say, hey, we're going to take you from here and we're going to throw you over to Battlefront, or we're going to take you from Battlefront, throw you over here to Battlefield. And DICE 100% is not a multi-game studio. Like, they literally cannot do it, which is why they have so many development teams working on this. So DICE can focus on what they do best, and they can bring in, because I think this ultimately was like, hey, DICE, we know you can do these things very well, but we're going to put you on the things that you do super, super well. Focus on those. We'll bring some other teams in to help you guys out, and that way you guys can do what you need to do and not get into the situation of, we're one team, we can't staff up to the point where we need to, so let's bring on these development teams.
Yeah, I think that's something that people often overlook with that sort of the era, of Battlefront 2 and Battlefield 5.
The dark times.
They both obviously had their rough times. The thing is that, 2016, Battlefield 1 came out, 2017, Battlefront 2 came out, 2018, Battlefield 5 came out. So they had never done that before, where there's so many, like their previous cycle was like a 2 to 3 year thing, and then they brought out 3 games in 3 years, essentially, all of which are large scale games. They're not Call of Duty, they're not small little maps, they're freaking enormous maps. So,
and Battlefront 2015 was on already a tight development schedule, because they had the announcement of the license, and then 2 years later they had Battlefront that came out.
So I think I'm willing to let them have that, because I think they just went too hard and that didn't work for them. And I think now they are slowing down. It doesn't seem like they're making a Battlefront 3, or at least not anytime soon. So they've put that to the side to focus on Battlefield. Yeah. And then, it just seems like they're going back to that, like, let's slow down and make the games that we used to make, rather than trying to. It almost felt like they were catching Call of Duty, and Call of Duty does yearly releases. And they thought, hey, we're doing really well, why don't we try and put out more, and then we might do better. And it just didn't really work. So I think if they just go back to that, and I don't care if we only get a game every 3 years, like a Battlefield game every 3 years, as long as they're made the way that they used to be, then that will keep me playing it for 2.5 years because they were so good. But
yeah, and I've said this many times too. I don't want, like, we don't necessarily need a game every 3 years if the one game is set up in a way that they can continually add to it easily.
Yeah, exactly.
And support it as an experience. Now, there is a time frame where you're going to need a second game, maybe. But we see with Rainbow Six Siege that they've done very well with their time frame and how they've supported the game and really brought it back from a terrible launch to the case study on, hey, we can actually change the game and then continue to support it and continue to grow it.
Yeah, I think that's something that I hear a lot of people saying that like, you know, eventually, say with Battlefront 2, if they kept supporting that, people say like, oh, but eventually I would have got bored with it anyway. But yeah, look at Counter-Strike and stuff. Those games have been around for like a decade.
Yeah.
And people still play them. So if you set it up in a way that obviously the core gameplay and the game itself and the graphics and everything, they need to be really good. But then if you set it up to the point where you can just keep adding content to it, people won't get bored of it. And if they do, if numbers start to drop off, you know, after 4 years, instead of you hoping it's like a 6-7 year thing, and then after 4 years it starts to drop off, we'll then start looking into making a new one then. But they need to start like planning for the live service, I think. And
with the cost of development too. Development with games has risen exponentially. We're just starting to see the price of games start to match that with a rise in the cost for next gen consoles. And we're seeing it would be cheaper to get a bunch of people set up to build the game and then a smaller team set up to support it, or maybe even a larger team to support it and can continue to add on it. And if you have ways to support it monetarily, it makes sense from a development side of things to continue on a set game. Instead of, like, we're seeing the game development industry go into the direction of, we're going to implement it as a platform. You're seeing this with Assassin's Creed just announced something similarly, where the next Assassin's Creed is going to be a live service game.
It does seem like that's the way of the future, doesn't it? I think they've learned that it's probably the same in a way with the consoles. Like the selling of the game, I mean, it makes them probably billions of dollars, but that's probably not where the main money comes from. It's from after launch when you know, you're selling again. If you have the right monetization, because we've seen with Battlefront 2, if that had a really good monetization system, that would still be getting support and it'd probably be making billions of dollars a year. But they didn't do it properly, so that didn't work. But look at a game like I mean, any of the battle royales, they're freaking free games. They are free. They're not guaranteed to make a single dollar, and yet they make billions because they make a good game, they get it in people's hands, and then people want to pay and support because they're making good content. And I think that's honestly the way that it needs to go in the future. And honestly, even like at some point, all games might be free, because they want to get people in the door, and then like have it set up so that they can make money, because it obviously works pretty well.
And psychologically too, instead of paying like, I can see like, if I spend $60 to $70 on a game, there's no way I'm going to spend additional money. But if it's free, I'm like, $5 here, $5 there, and then as you play through, like, you're going to make back way more on the money just from that experience.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect example being Warzone. That game's free, but I've probably spent more on it than I would have if it was a paid game, because there's also like so many awesome skins and stuff, and because it's free, like you said, you just go, I didn't pay for the game, so I'll give them $10 here for a couple skins and stuff. Like, who cares about that? And then over the course, again, if you do this for 5 years, it's not like if you spend, say, $200 on the game. Obviously, if you spend that all at once, that's a lot of money. But over 5 years, that's not even much at all. It's less than if you bought a game every year. So, I think Fortnite opened a lot of people's eyes to that, and that hopefully, I think it's the best way to do it too. Like, I think it's a win-win for everyone, because the other thing is, if you don't want to pay for the battle passes and stuff like that, you don't have to. So, it's kind of a win for the actual players too, because you get a choice of, hey, I want to support the game and I'll give them $5-10, whatever. Or if you can't afford it, or if you just don't want to, then just don't. And you still get the game. You still get all the actual content, like the weapons and the maps and stuff. You're not losing anything by not getting some skins and stuff. So
yeah,
I think it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, and I just pulled it up because I also thought of Fortnite as the example of like people opening the doors to all of these different situations and experiences that you can have with a game that's free. September 26, 2017 is when Fortnite came out, and it's still vibrant. It's still going on strong, and it is still like the amount of money that game just prints. I know people who have spent multiple thousands of dollars in that game. And if one person does that, widen it to the amount of just the law of averages. Like if only 10% of 50 million people spend $1,000 on your game,
yeah,
that's 5 million people. That's quite a bit of money.
Yeah, and it's a good example too, because like you said, they came out in September of 2017. 2 months later, Battlefront comes out, which you would say Battlefront at the time was a bigger franchise than Fortnite. We didn't know what Fortnite really was. And yet Battlefront 2 has been cancelled and Fortnite is still one of the biggest games. So it just proves the proof is in the numbers that the live service, if done properly, is the best way to go about it.
I mean, that's ultimately why I'm super excited about Battlefield 2042, because they have a battle pass. They have a way for you to give them money past the launch. I mean, they would definitely get a lot more people into the game if it was free. And they would definitely make a lot of money if they also had the battle pass along with cosmetics and all of those experiences. But they are trying to still hold to, because DICE as a company doesn't have the experience to offer those types of experiences in the game. So at this point, it would be a huge learning experience, and they don't need a learning experience at this point because they had the misstep of Battlefield 5.
Yeah, I have seen a lot of people complain that, like, we're going to pay $70 for the game, and then there's a battle pass as well. Like it only works with free games. But if I'm paying for the game, I don't want to do that. But like you said, I don't think. Like, I would love to see a free Battlefield in the next Battlefield, whatever. Or
if they ever have a battle royale, that needs to be free. They found that out with Firestorm.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think in a way this could be a stepping stone for them, where like maybe games do start, releasing for free. Call of Duty and Battlefield and stuff. The main games could actually release for free if they go down that route. I don't know if it will happen because people are still buying them. Like, they're doing well and they're paid. So to them, it's probably like, why would we lose all those millions of dollars on the sale? But I think they're just taking the right step, and I don't want them to go too quickly. I don't want them to just completely transition the game to like a free only live service type of game. Like, I want them to just get back to what they need to do and then make this a good title, and then the next one they can start to experiment a little bit. But yeah, I don't think they, like you said, I don't think they need a learning experience in this one, because they just had it with Battlefield 5, and they need the complete opposite of a learning experience in this one.
Exactly. They have to play it as, I don't want to say safe, but as they have to play to people's expectations with this game, and they have to offer something that fulfills the widest reach. And at this point, it is a standard Battlefield game set in the near future, and they're implementing new technologies into it. I really like the EA Play Live, the future of shooters thing that they had, and how they're using procedural generation and AI to help develop the maps. And at this point, it takes 6 to 12 months to develop a map for Battlefield. And with the introduction of procedural AI, or procedurally generated AI, neural network stuff, you can start to change up what that is like in the future, and you can generate the bare bones of a map quicker and then start to customize it to where it is more unique.
Yeah, and that's like 6 to 12 months is pretty decent, because I remember when Geonosis was added to Battlefront 2, which is probably not any bigger than a Battlefield map, that they said that took them 12 months. So it's still the same time frame, but the maps in Battlefield are way bigger. So if Geonosis compared to, like, say, the bigger maps in the game at the same time frame, they're obviously improving on the speed of it and stuff. So
yeah, and they don't have to go to the approvals of Lucasfilm to add anything to the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they own it. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see what we find out at EA Play. We don't necessarily know if it is the position or the place to announce any of these technical details. Ultimately, it really isn't, but I can see maybe after the show you can get more of the press interviews type of situations where you can get more of those details.
Yeah, I feel like I think EA Play will be kind of that big, I feel like it's going to cover that game mode, or maybe even Hazard Zone, although they kind of hinted towards that being a bit later. But I think it'll be a big sort of showcase, and then I feel like there will be a lot of, like, maybe even trailers and stuff like that in the lead up to launch. I think there's still a lot of stuff they're going to come out with, but I think in terms of those smaller details, I'm not really expecting too much at EA Play, which kind of sucks because the smaller details for me are borderline as important. I don't need to be sold on the love letter mode. I'm already excited for it. I don't care what it is, to be honest. So I'm more just interested in the crossplay and the cross gen and stuff like that. That's what I'm mostly interested in.
Yeah, and I expect a lot more details. And I mean, the game is coming out in 3 months. They don't have a whole lot of time to announce all these details.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to seeing with that. But with that being said, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Battlefield Show. Always so much to talk about and so little time, but really enjoy it, and I'm glad that you all can listen to us. If you do enjoy the show, please leave us a review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Help us out a ton in finding new people, and it also gives us your feedback. And follow both Sammy and I on Twitter, on YouTube, and definitely come join us in our communities. It's a great place. We're super pumped for Battlefield 2042, and we'd like to thank Ethan Clark for designing our lovely, lovely thumbnail art. As always, we'll see you on the battlefield.